The Stillwater Planning Commission meeting of July the 8th, 2025 is called to order. It will be the process this evening to call for items on the agenda. The commission will hear briefly from staff first, then applicant and/or representative, then open the public hearing and hear from those in favor and/or in opposition to the request. When you come forward, please clearly state your name and the address for the record. Before closing the public hearing, both staff, applicant, and/or representative will be provided an opportunity to respond to provide additional information and answer questions. After all interested parties have spoken, the public hearing will be closed. We will hear closing remarks and alternatives from staff. First item on the agenda tonight is to receive public comment regarding a request for a specific use permit, SUP 24-01, for a medical marijuana dispensary in the commercial shopping district at property addressed 209 North Perkins Road. We shall hear from staff.
Yes, thank you, and good evening, Planning Commissioners. I'm Josh Brown, the Development Coordinator with City of Stillwater Development Services. As you said, this is a specific use permit for 209 South Perkins Road. This is to allow the medical marijuana dispensary use in CS zoning. This is an area map of the property showing its frontage along South Perkins Road, and an aerial view showing the subject property's location. Bronco Equipment Rental is to the north, and Hughes Lumber is to the south, south of 3rd Avenue. This is a street view taken from Perkins Road. This is for the Vice dispensary that they did to get a sign permit and everything, and that's been installed while they were waiting for the transfer of their license. And that has now been completed, and here we are today. This is a zoning map. This is located along a commercial corridor on Perkins. There's CS zoning to the north and to the south. To the east is small lot single family residential, and to the west across Perkins is public zoning. This is the future land use map, which was adopted with our current comprehensive plan and is used to predict the future land uses. The future land use map in this case calls for commercial uses at this location. Do you have any questions for staff?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand. Did you say this was an existing dispensary or totally new?
It's an existing dispensary at a different location.
Okay. And they're waiting on, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff? Thank you. At this time, we will hear from the applicant and/or representative.
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Brian Dowell. I'm representative for Vice Dispensary today, and I'd like to field any questions that you guys have for me.
Can you please state your address for the record?
The business address or my physical address?
Business is fine.
Okay, 209 South Perkins, here in Stillwater.
So you guys are moving currently?
No, sir. We have a location at, I believe it's 2624 North Perkins, and then we're adding another location at the 209 South Perkins location.
All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Just to clarify, you're moving the license you had at a different location to this location because there's a moratorium on new dispensaries.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to clarify, the existing location that we currently have in Stillwater is not moving. It will stay where it's at. This is a location that we had in a different town that we have moved that license
It's
to this
existing
license.
license, you're just transferring the location
Yes,
to
ma'am.
Stillwater.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely.
And just so that commissioners know, the license from the state in that packet expired last year. However, staff did verify it is valid now, and it does not expire again until October.
Right. Thank you for the clarification.
What's the moratorium you were speaking about? Right.
So the state has put a moratorium, and there's no new licenses that are issued, and it's been in effect, I think, since 2022.
Yeah.
So the ones that you see usually here are just they're moving different locations, but it's the license that's still valid, but they can move it. They just can't open an additional one under that license.
Yes. Yep.
Is this a moratorium directed by the state?
Yes.
Is there a time frame for the length of the moratorium?
Not that I'm aware of.
No other questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, we will open the public hearing and ask that if anyone wants to come forward and speak in favor of this item. Seeing none, we'll ask if anyone wants to come forward and speak in opposition. Seeing none, we will close the public hearing and move on to closing remarks from staff.
So staff's findings for this are that the Land Development Code does allow for medical marijuana dispensaries in the commercial shopping district with a specific use permit, and that the comprehensive plan calls for commercial uses at the property's location. So now your alternatives: you can accept the findings and recommend that City Council approve the proposed specific use permit, or you can accept the findings and recommend that the City Council conditionally approve the proposed specific use permit subject to conditions being met, which can include but not, that shouldn't be there, okay, sorry. And find that the specific use permit is not an appropriate use for the property based upon the impact to the surrounding vicinity, and do not recommend that City Council approve the request. Find that additional information or discussion is needed prior to making a recommendation, and table the request to a certain date. And then staff recommends alternative number 1.
Commissioners, any discussion or motion?
I will move that we accept the findings, recommend the City Council approve the proposed specific use permit.
Second motion.
I have a motion and a second. We shall now vote. Motion passes 4-0. Next item on the agenda will be to receive public comment regarding a preliminary plat SUB 25-10 in small lot single-family residential zoning district with a planned unit development overlay RSS PUD at property addressed 505 East 18th Avenue. We shall hear from staff.
Yes, as mentioned, this is a preliminary plat for a development known as the Fern Street Cottages, located at 505 East 18th Avenue. And here's an area map again. The subject property is outlined in the kind of the pinkish hatch pattern on the northwest corner of Fern Street and East 19th Avenue. The red line there is the southern boundary of city limits. Here's an aerial view. The Countryside Mobile Home Park is located directly to the west, and to the north, currently on the same lot, is the Habitat for Humanity offices and building. Here's a zoning map. Mobile home residential is located to the west, light industrial is located to the north, and two-family residential is located to the east of the property, which is currently zoned RSS with a PUD overlay, as was mentioned. Here's a street view of the subject property, and here's the preliminary plat. 15 total lots are what is being proposed. Lot 15 there's 14 with residential structures on it. Lot 15 has a playground and a storm shelter. It's used as a community space. So a little bit of background on this project. In April of 21, the preliminary PUD was approved by Planning Commission, and per section 23-308, the preliminary PUD may serve as the project's preliminary plat, which is the case in this situation. In May of 2021, the PUD was approved by City Council, and then an ordinance passed in June of 2021, officially rezoning the property from light industrial to RSS, or small lot single-family residential. Per section 2363F2, the preliminary plat shall expire 2 years from the date of approval unless a final plat of any portion is filed. That never happened, and it's been 4 years, so the preliminary plat has expired. Essentially, the applicant now wants to move forward with the final plat because improvements are to a point where, well, they're being worked on. Let's put it that way. And that's all. Stephen Gose is the project's engineer and is here to speak on this item. Do you have any questions for staff?
Not at this time, thank you. We'll ask the applicant and/or representative to come forward.
Good evening, Commissioners. Stephen Gose with Gose and Associates, 113 East 8th. Josh covered everything. We started this back in 2021. There was some off-site water improvements necessary that Habitat and the city partnered on to get a water line in Fern upgraded and looped. The on-site improvements are done. That street view that Josh showed is kind of an old one. Where the homes go now has been graded. The sewer lines are stubbed up, and they're working on paving that parking area in the middle. So just for various reasons that Habitat, it's taken a while to get where we're at, and now that they're ready to start getting closer for those homes, and they've got some state funding they've applied for construction for a few of those. They're ready now to get the final plat rolling, so we got to get the preliminary plat reapproved. So if there's any questions, I can try to answer them.
I was just curious about the address. 504 East 19th is in some documentation we have, and then it's 505 East 18th.
The 18th address is the Habitat offices.
Okay.
And I think, or when this all started, that whole parcel had one address.
I gotcha.
And
Thanks.
so the Habitat office is on the north end, and the Restore building, and then this lot.
Gotcha. And it's the same plat. I mean, nothing's changed since there's
Nothing's changed. I think we may have changed the title to say preliminary PUD site plan and preliminary plat.
Thank
So.
you.
Any other questions?
All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
At this time, we'll open the public hearing and receive comment from anyone who would like to speak in favor of this item. Seeing none, I will ask if anyone would like to speak in opposition. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and ask staff to come back and present us with all alternatives.
Staff's findings, the proposed preliminary plat matches the preliminary plat and preliminary PUD, which was approved in 2021. The comprehensive plan recommends low-density residential uses at this location, and the proposed density is in alignment with the RSS PUD zoning requirements. Your alternatives tonight are to accept the findings and approve the proposed preliminary plat as presented, approve the proposed preliminary plat with conditions, noting what conditions should be met for the approval of the final plat, or you can reject the findings and deny the proposed preliminary plat as presented. And then finally, find that additional information or discussion is needed prior to making a decision and table the request to a certain date, noting that action must be taken within 60 days of the public hearing. Staff recommends alternative number 1 again, which is to accept it.
Commissioners, any discussion or motion?
Make a motion to accept the findings and approve the plat presented.
Second the motion.
I have a motion and a second. We shall now vote. Motion passes 3-0.
There's 4 commissioners.
3-1 abstain.
We have one abstain?
No choice.
No, there's no choice. Let's take a verbal, please.
All right, verbal roll call, Vice Chair Williams,
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Prather,
Sorry.
Commissioner Shanahan,
Yes.
Commissioner Peters.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. Next item on the agenda will to be receive public comment regarding a request for a map amendment, MA 25-04, to rezone property addressed as 320 South Walnut Street from small lot single-family residential RSS to two-family residential RT. So item was tabled from the June 24th meeting. We'll hear from staff.
All right. As mentioned, this is a map amendment request at 320 South Walnut Street to rezone from RSS, single lot, small family, or small lot, single family residential to two family residential or RT. Here's an area map. This is located near the northwest corner of South Walnut and West 4th Avenue. And then here's an aerial view of this property's location. Here's a street view taken from Walnut looking west. This is the property as it currently sits. This is a zoning map. Let's see. So this property is located on a strip of RSS zoning, or small lot single family. RSS does actually continue to the west. It just has a Westwood overlay. That's why it's green, and the hatch pattern to the north of that. RMI, or multifamily intermediate, is located directly to the east across Walnut, and then RTM, or two-family and multifamily residential, is located to the southeast. Here's the future land use map. In this case, it does call for low-density residential uses. And then just real quick, a definition of that taken directly from the comprehensive plan. It states that within the low-density residential category, conventional single-family detached dwellings, two-family units, and low-density multifamily are found, with single-family being the primary. The gross density, it does allow for up to 20 dwelling units per acre, and proposed tonight is 9.68 dwelling units per acre, 3 townhomes, 3 units. So a little bit of history on this one, on this property, anyways. On August 6th of 2024, the Planning Commission heard a map amendment which proposed to rezone this property from RSS to RTM. The Planning Commission recommended denial of that request with a 5-0 vote. The map amendment was then withdrawn by the applicant before being heard by the City Council. And so then, as you've mentioned, on June 24th of this year, this item was tabled to today's meeting. Aaron Ferguson with Bancroft Engineering is here to speak on the item. Do you have any questions for staff?
Yes, could you refresh my memory why the Planning Commission voted 5-0 against the rezone?
Sure. RTM is the most intense multifamily zoning district.
Correct.
And let me go back to here's the zoning map. So RTM is the one to the southeast there. It's kind of the orangish shade. And so I think Planning Commission kind of felt it was a little bit too intense for this location.
The zoning was too intense for that.
Yeah.
Abutting the Westwood overlay.
The single family, yeah.
Right.
The character there. And so staff feels at this location, this is kind of a easier transition from the Westwood single family to the more intense multifamily across Walnut here.
Also, I believe that we had, when this was originally presented, they did not provide us with any plan or intention of what they're wanting to do. So when we were looking at it going to RTM, it was, okay, but you have a lot of options that you can do with that, and we really have no idea what you're planning on.
So yeah.
Good point.
Any other questions for staff? Thank you. At this time, we'll ask the applicant and/or representative to come forward.
Hello, Aaron Ferguson with Bancroft Design at 923 South Lowry. So some additional background to it is we had looked at a couple different zoning options, and the developers looked at a couple different ideas on what he wants to do with the property, and the property meets the dimension requirements for RTM and RMI. We had initially, even this go around, looked at rezoning to RMI, but even though it meets the code dimension requirements, it doesn't meet the code overall area requirements for those zonings. So we're requesting to rezone to RT because it gives us some more flexibility on the specific use of townhomes on the lot size requirements. And so that's kind of the history behind it, and now we are coming forward with a specific request to construct townhomes on the property. And there's apartments across the street and just down the street, so we feel that it matches in with those current uses right now. And I know staff had a couple issues with parking and with the dumpster location. I think those have been resolved to staff satisfaction. Are there any other questions for me?
And so then the next item on the agenda is you applying for a specific use permit to be able to have townhomes within this new zoning, correct?
Yes.
And I assume that the townhomes will be meeting all necessary setbacks
Yes.
and requirements.
Yeah, there
for-
should be, as far as I understand, there should have been a site plan.
Yeah, there will be in the next one.
Okay,
I'm
yeah.
just trying to clarify prior to that.
Yes.
Okay. Commissioners, any other questions? Thank you. At this time, we will open the public hearing and ask if anyone would like to come forward and speak in favor of this item. Seeing none, we'll ask if anyone would like to come forward and speak in opposition. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and ask staff to return to present alternatives.
All right. And I do just want to go back a little bit and reiterate. Townhomes are allowed in RSS and RT with a SUP. The reason for the RT request is the density requirements. I think in RSS it's 8 units per acre, and then in RT it's 11 units per acre. They're proposing 9.68. So little clarification there.
Thank you.
Okay. I think that actually gets hit on maybe in the next one. Okay, so the Land Development Code allows for the rezoning of land via map amendments. Two-family and multifamily, or RTM, is located in the vicinity to the southeast, with RMI, or multifamily intermediate, to the east, with various high density further east of the subject property. The comprehensive plan calls for low density residential for the subject property location. So your alternatives tonight are to accept the findings and recommend that City Council approve the proposed map amendment as presented. You can accept the findings and recommend that the City Council conditionally approve the proposed map amendment, subject to specific conditions being met. You can find that the map amendment is not an appropriate use for the property based upon the impacts to the surrounding vicinity, and do not recommend that the City Council approve the map amendment. Or you can find that additional information or discussion is needed prior to making a recommendation and table the request to a certain date. Staff recommends alternative number 1.
Commissioners, any discussion? I do think that this is a better rezoning than what was originally proposed to us. And being that we can see what the plans are, I do think that it fits the area. It's a better balance going from the apartment complex across the street to the single-family homes in the Westwood overlay.
I agree. I move that we accept the findings by staff and approve to move to the city council.
A second.
I have a motion and a second. We shall vote. Motion passes 4-0. Next item on the agenda will be to receive public comment regarding a request for a specific use permit, SUP 25-03, for property addressed at 320 South Walnut Street to allow townhomes in two-family residential district. Show from staff.
All right. As you mentioned, this is a specific use permit for 320 South Walnut, which is the property we just discussed for a map amendment. This request is to allow townhomes as a use in two-family residential, or RT. Here's a conceptual elevation plan. Not much more to that. Here's a conceptual site plan. It does meet all setbacks. The dumpster is located within the property line. The parking actually is still kind of in the right of way along the street. That A request has been submitted to the engineering department for review, and then it will go down to city manager's office for approval. And I skipped the maps on that one since it's the same property. So any questions on this?
You said the parking's in the right of way, so
A little bit, yeah. I think that dashed line is supposed to be the property line. Yes.
okay.
They exceed parking requirements as it is, as proposed. I think 9 was required. 9 spaces were required. They have 8 on the property, and then 7 in front of the building, splitting the right of way.
But they're still working on the right-of-way parking up front with staff.
Yeah, it still has to be approved. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, all this still has to be reviewed and approved. This is all conceptual at this point.
Okay.
David Barth, Development Services Director. Just wanted to clarify on the parking. So you are allowed to use on-street parking to count towards your parking. It's just the requirements are you have to take 2 spaces of on-street parking is equivalent to 1 space for your requirement to meet your requirements. So Josh is correct in that they need 9 parking spaces to meet the parking requirements for the project, and they're providing 8 in the back, and then they would need 1 additional parking space, which they would certainly meet with 7 on-street parking. If for some reason the city manager's office or whoever approves this on-street parking did not approve this, then they would need to modify their design to have enough to match the units up with the parking requirements. But again, this is just a special use permit, specific use permit, request to allow townhomes here, not necessarily this quantity of townhomes or,
Right. Thank you. Commissioners, any question for staff?
So there are 5 bedrooms per unit. Is there any limit by code on how many people can occupy a unit?
I do not believe so, no.
So right now they're shown with a double bed in each bedroom. So
Right.
could there be potentially 10 people in each unit?
Possibly, but again, what's in front of you is just allowing this location to have duplexes to see if that is appropriate for the use. This is just a conceptual drawing. There's so much more steps to go on what that will actually look like and how many there will be, but right now it's just deciding whether or not it's a good use for townhomes or not.
And all of those steps will go through the city process.
Absolutely.
And make sure that the city's good with
And that
it,
they have-
however the final design
Right.
comes out. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I'll ask the applicant and/or representative to come forward.
Hello, Aaron Ferguson with Bancroft Design at 923 South Lowry. I think you've heard pretty much most of it right now, but are there any questions related to the townhomes?
Are you do you have plans for screening around the property?
I believe that there is requirements in the city code for screening.
There's a table in here that says that.
So at this point, the architect has only given a conceptual site plan. I have not worked that far into the project.
I'm
but
looking at the table from the last item, and there is
I was
no,
just saying there wasn't any
No
on that,
requirements.
so I was wondering if it was attached to the SUP, but probably.
you can make that a condition.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, well, making the assumption that the gentleman from the first item is not here to have issues with this, that says nobody from the neighborhood had a concern that
They
wanted to raise.
received notices from the city.
Right.
The
So I'm just curious, did you guys have to deal with any of that?
I have not. I don't know if the architect and owner have.
Okay.
I don't think so. But
Okay, because they're very conscientious in Westwood
Sure.
about things, so that's a good sign, I guess.
And they did come out and speak the last time that this was up, and yeah, not anybody here tonight.
And there are similar types of complexes south on Walnut.
Mhm.
Just on the west side of Walnut, they're 2-story. On the east side of Walnut, are 3-story. So this would be the first 3-story proposed on the west side of Walnut.
Yes, but there are multiple apartment complexes there on the east side.
Right. That was just one of the concerns expressed by the neighbors, that have someone looking down on them. And so I noticed the conceptual that we saw today is a 3-story. And just thought I'd point out that on the rest of Walnut, it's 2-story on the west side, 3-story on the east.
Any other questions for applicant? Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, I'll open the public hearing and ask if anyone would like to come forward and speak in favor of this item. Seeing none, I'll ask if anyone would like to come forward and speak in opposition. Seeing none, I will ask that staff come forward and present us with alternatives.
So staff's findings for this project, the Land Development Code does allow townhomes in the 2-family residential district, or RT, with a max density of 11 units per acre. 2-family and multifamily intermediate are located in the vicinity to the east and southeast, along with various high density further east of the subject property. And the proposed townhomes align with the comprehensive plan, which calls for low density for the subject property location. Your alternatives tonight are to accept the findings and recommend that the City Council approve this specific use permit as presented. You can accept findings and recommend that the City Council conditionally approve the proposed specific use permit, subject to conditions being met, which can include but not limited to a site plan being submitted with a building permit. Yeah, that's that. I don't know what's happening. Okay. Third one, you can find that the specific use permit is not an appropriate use for the property based upon the impacts to the surrounding vicinity, and do not recommend that the City Council approve the specific use permit. And finally, you can find that additional information or discussion is needed prior to making a recommendation and table the request to a certain date. And again, staff recommends the first alternative.
Thank you. Commissioners, any discussion?
I'd propose that we accept the findings and approve it.
I think I would like to put, just being that there is not a screening item on here, and the parking lot is in the back. Currently, I believe when I drove by, I saw chain link fence in between there. So I know that no one was here to speak in opposition, but I'm just thinking about that neighborhood looking directly at a parking lot.
If you would like, I can read a list of conditions you may place on the SUP. It can be limited, not including but limited to the use, lot sizes, setbacks, height limits, is what you were speaking of, lighting, signage, landscaping, parking, and loading capability, land use density, and other standard requirements.
So the landscaping would be
You can do the landscaping, you can do the height.
considered the view block, basically.
Yes.
So I think my question is, what would you all think would be deemed an appropriate stipulation for something in between on that west side of the property?
Well, would there be an opportunity to place something like that as a requirement at the point where you actually know what they're going to build? Or do we need to do that now?
I would assume we have to do that now because this is the specific use permit. They won't come back in front of us.
Correct.
Gotcha. You probably should.
So I would
So we
motion.
do have a motion on the table.
Okay.
So is there a second?
Don't say
No second, so the motion lacks,
it. Yeah.
I can't think of the word I'm trying to say. It dies.
So I would motion to approve the specific use permit with the stipulation of a minimum 6-foot fence, non-opaque. Is that the right word I'm looking for to say solid?
I think you want
You could.
We want to be.
Or I want it to be opaque.
Right.
I'm sorry. Okay. So a 6-foot opaque view block to
Right.
the west side of the property. Yeah.
I like that, but I still have the question about 3-story.
You can limit the height of the building
Oh,
as a condition.
what do we think about that? In addition to the screening?
Personally, I wouldn't put that limit on the developer, but that's just me. I mean, they could make a 3-story look nice. You're just worried about looking over into other properties? Is that the concern?
Yeah, my concern would be the neighbor's concern about that. Now, they aren't here to express that concern, so
Right.
am I speculating?
I just saw it as a better transition from the higher level on the east side down to the lower level on the west side. And so I saw it as more of a transition. And for, like I said, further down on Walnut, there are 2 stories on the west, there are 3 stories on the east, but there's also that transition that shouldn't impact the neighbors to the west on Orchard as much.
Yeah, I personally don't. I'm in agreement with Mark here. I would not put that stipulation on the developer personally. I think as long as it meets all the applicable city requirements, I'm not gonna
In
put that
addition
in
to the
there.
condition that we stipulated in the motion with the barrier, the fence.
Right, I'm sticking with my current motion of just the barrier of the fence, but not the height.
Right, right.
The second part of my concern is still the number of people who can occupy each unit. And I don't know what the code calls for in Stillwater for a townhome with 5 bedrooms.
But there are codes that address that, right?
David, can you speak to that? I don't have that memorized.
Yes, so if you're asking, is there a code that limits the number of bedrooms in a townhome? I don't believe so.
No, I
The
think
number of people in a residence, no
That
matter how many
reside.
bedrooms it has.
Yeah, I don't believe we have a code that limits the number of people that live in a residence. I think, I'm not sure how we would police that. We have code enforcement for things like noise and, violating other city codes, but as far as 8 people living together in a 4-bedroom house and 2 people per bedroom, that's probably happening. I don't know how we would enforce it, and I don't think we have any codes that prohibit that. If there were people, parking in front of other houses, in areas where you were, restricted parking or any of those kinds of things, we would just send out code enforcement. But I was also going to tell you, so our code does define a townhome. It does not specifically mention the number of levels or the height. It just says a townhome means a row or group of independent single-family units located on individual lots or on a common building site. Each unit has independent access to the outside, is not located over another unit, and is separated from other units by 1 or more common firewalls along the common property boundary or unit boundary. So what they're, conceptually proposing meets that. There again, there's nothing about height. I guess the main thing is that a townhome can't have another separate unit above it. So in this, whether it's a 2-story townhome or a 3-story townhome, it's one unit is that vertical structure, and they're proposing maybe 3 of those connected by common firewalls.
But the SUP does allow you to put conditions on sizes and height if you so wish.
Yes.
So potentially, you could have 10 people in each unit, correct, with 5 bedrooms? Or more. All of a sudden, now you've got a potential 30 people living in what was a small residential lot. I have no problem with the zoning change. I'm just concerned about the number of occupants who could potentially live there and the impact on parking and the neighbors around them.
My opinion, I can see how, yes, potentially, I just don't see that to be likely. I see that these are probably going to be rented to students who are living 1 to a bedroom, most likely, maybe have 2 in a bedroom. I understand that it's possible, but being that there is no city or code that stipulates how many people can or can't live in a dwelling, I'm not personally going to take too much of that into my deliberation. That's my thought process on it. I do understand what you're saying. That's just my side of it as well.
Do you want him to address
Yeah,
it?
if you'd like to come forward.
So from a practical standpoint, there are 15 parking spaces proposed. Now, not all of those could be counted toward an official count for the city, but there are 15 spaces either on the property or adjacent to the property, which corresponds to the number of bedrooms that are proposed in all the townhomes combined. So just from a practical standpoint, I don't think it's likely that there would be 10 people in a unit just because there's no place to park anywhere. And if there are issues with people parking on the street, then the police can ticket people as necessary. So just from a practical standpoint, I don't think it's likely that there would be an inordinate number of people.
I would also assume that the owner probably doesn't want that many people in there because that would just cause significant more wear and tear on their property.
Yeah. Thank you.
Just from a, I don't know, procedural maybe is the angle. If we were concerned about the number of people, it seems like, you could tell me, the only avenue to really address that would be to not approve this. There's no conditions that we could put on to address that. other than
Right,
not
and then you
approving it.
also, it's still zone RT, and even if you built a home, you could have 2 people per bedroom and a 4-bedroom and still have 8 people, or
Right.
whatever those numbers look. There's no limit in the RSS RT of how many people can be in a home.
So is the motion still there?
I think his motion, unless there's a second, will die.
I would second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. We shall now vote. Motion passes 3-1. Lastly, we will have on miscellaneous items from staff, planning commissioners, or city attorney for discussion and possible action. All we have listed is the next regular meeting is July 15th of 2025. If there's nothing else, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. We shall vote. Motion passes 4-0.